My name is Nicola. I go by the name Nicola Johannan. I was born in London, in England, in the UK. My parents are from Caribbean heritage, so my family is from Jamaica. And my background is very kind of humble beginnings. I'm the eldest of three children, three daughters. And I've always been taught, to be humble, to be, kind, to be caring to people, to be hardworking, to be determined.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
All the good traits. I'm really, grateful to my family for just providing a solid, stable foundation for me. Professional-wise, I've gone into law, so I'm a qualified corporate and property solicitor. That's been my background. That's what I studied at university. I've had a really, really thriving career in law, shall I say. I've been qualified for 5 years now. And recently, earlier on this year, I was actually able to kind of escape the 9-to-5 rat race, as we call it, and become a consultant for myself. So I've really enjoyed making that transition. It was very daunting, but it's something I've really appreciated being able to do. And I suppose the decision for me that, I wanted more than just the wake up, go to work, come home, wake up, go to work, come home. Like, I wanted more than that. I knew that from a very early age. And so for me, it's just been about putting that in place, going on that wealth journey, creating multiple streams of income for myself, helping other people to do the same thing. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm also a mother. So I've got a son who is 18 years old. He's currently away at university. So that's a new experience for me and for him, because it's like the first time in my life where I'm not with him. So, but super proud of him. And he's an, awesome kid. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for that, Nicola. That is really interesting. That is an interesting story. Of course, we're going to talk about it more before we move into what you do. That is a really nice lay down of an experience that we have here to explore. Like we usually do here, we want to go back a bit to know more, even from your background story. So, what do you want to tell us about from your parents? Why they're in UK, anything you remember about us, because we are just here for the storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So my grandparents were actually the ones that came from Jamaica to the UK. So my maternal grandparents, my grandma and granddad, they came here when they were very young. I think my grandma was 19, my granddad was 23 when they came from Jamaica and settled here. They had 4 daughters in, I think, 5 years. So, they went straight into family mode. And worked really hard. My grandma, she was a seamstress, so she used to make, dresses and clothes and curtains and all that kind of stuff. And I still remember being a kid and seeing her big Singer sewing machine in the room. That's a huge thing, a whole table from, where she used to work from. And my granddad, he was a carpenter, so he, worked on different construction sites and stuff in the UK. And obviously was very handy around the house. I remember weekends he was always banging or drilling or sewing something. So yeah, that was kind of my earliest memories being with them. My mum, so she is the third daughter of my grandparents, and she had me when she was 18, so she had me quite young. And for most of that time, she was single, so it was just me, and then a few years later my younger sister came along. And for a long time, it was just us. So we moved out. We moved to Brixton. My granddad lived in Clapham, and that was life pretty much. Went to a normal state school, normal upbringing. The only thing that I can say was really kind of difficult about growing up was that my mum wasn't always well. She has mental health difficulties sometimes, and so that was quite traumatic at times, because it meant that there was some instability in the family. Sometimes everything would be good, and then sometimes we'd have to go and stay with my aunts, and she would be in hospital. So that was quite hard to navigate growing up, because we didn't fully understand it, and sometimes it came to a point where it became very public. The ambulance would have to be called, or the police would have to be called, and that was quite not only scary but also quite embarrassing, if you want to say that, for a child to that those things happened at school sometimes. So it was quite difficult to navigate that growing up. Whereas obviously, I love my mom, and would never change her. but those things were hard to navigate as and how to deal with that. So yeah, that was kind of one of the things that I think was quite influential for me, because I saw how hard she worked. That mom was really super smart, super clever. Went to university. She was a key stage, like a latchkey worker. So latchkey in the UK is like childcare. So she had a centre that she managed for children, and they went there after school, and she used to manage the whole thing. And I even remember she took me with her sometimes. I was very young. I must be about 2 or 3. But I remember all of that growing up, and she's, super capable, hard worker. She's now a qualified nurse, so she's done a lot in her life, but I've seen as I've grown up how much that's taken a toll on her, trying to look after us, trying to make sure, she's pursuing her own goals and trying to deal with the health issues as well. So that kind of instilled in me a drive to kind of really work hard, because I wanted to be able to look after her. I saw how hard she tried to look after us, and I wanted to be able to repay that. So I suppose that's what gave me my determination to kind of create a better life. And that's why I probably worked so hard and, went to uni and did everything that came after, because of what that instilled in me. But I suppose also an element of taking back control, because as a child growing up in that situation, often you feel out of control. So for me, it was about creating a life where I was in control. So yeah, that probably all goes hand in hand. And that's kind of the beginning story of me, I guess.
Thank you so much for that. I like that. I like that. That is rich. Even though what we are talking about is not about personal development, but that is something that I like to quote there. That there is a saying, of course, a guest of mine did said it one time, and I find it to be very valuable. That when the gods send you on a mission, send a blind man to the war, the blindness is already accounted for. So you are supposed to go to the war and win like the blind men do, which is to say that wherever you find yourself, there is nothing to regret. Just pick it up and fight with what you have in your situation, because that is what you are supposed to do.
Correct.
So I thank you for this sharing. I really find it very, very interesting. Now, one thing I would also like to know is that as you were growing up, looking at the circumstances around you, looking at life as it were, looking at the reality as it is now, what do you see also in relation to other people that you were growing up with? I mean, the children, other children like you, the neighborhood where you live in, of course, within the context of African diaspora, because that is where we are actually concentrating on. But for us, it's very important. Our history, our story, our experiences. I wanted to tell me, what do you remember of you growing up and within other people, and of course, with other people that may not necessarily be African diaspora? Help me with that.
So the area that I grew up was very mixed. Obviously living in London, it's already culturally diverse. So you grow up with people that are from all different backgrounds, all different countries. I remember, there was, I think things now are very much more mixed. So when I was growing up, there was like a strong Caribbean influence, and then there was a strong West African influence. And the two camps didn't really mix. We were kind of very separated as children. Obviously, we were all friends, and especially in school, we were all friends, but it was two very distinct cultural differences where I think now, maybe you're talking, 20, 30 years on, everything is much more combined, especially when it comes to culture. You've got a strong Black British culture in the UK, and it's got influences of all of it mixed together. So I think that's really lovely to see. Personally, myself, I've always been very kind of culturally aware of other people and their different backgrounds. So by faith, I'm Orthodox Christian, Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. So that meant that I went to church from a very young age, and I was surrounded by lots of East African culture. Lots of my friends are Ethiopian or Eritrean. I got to know the language, I got to know the food, I got to know so many different kind of influences. So I was never closed off to kind of think, it's just Jamaican heritage and that's it. No, I've always been aware of lots of different kind of cultures. And I've really appreciated that. It's given me a good sense of relatability to other people and their journeys. And it's helped to break down biases as well. You get older, you realize that everyone is just like you. They've all got a story, they've all got a family, they've all got the same priorities, the same goals, the same dreams. So it's been a really kind of rich upbringing I've had, surrounded by lots of different people. And I'm really grateful for it.
You said something important, no? That at a point, apart from the fact that you got a very good education, because there are two things that a lot of African diaspora, or by extension, many Africans want their children to get when the line they want them to go when they start education. Either you are a lawyer or and you go into medicine for them, or engineering. These are very important, no? If you go to this one, if you are an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, you are educated. Other than that, they don't really understand why you should become educated to do anything other than these three disciplines. So you were already working in a good place. You were living a good life. But what do you have to leave this one and strike out on yourself to do something different? Sort of go out of the rat race, as it were.
Yeah, so I mean, I think times have really changed, and obviously traditionally the best paid jobs, if you want to call it that, were the professions, so obviously medicine, law, engineering, technology, those kind of things, those are the areas that you're always going to be able to find work in, the areas that are well paid, the areas that you require high level of skill. So I can appreciate that, historically those have always been the things that we have been kind of geared towards doing. But I feel that over the past maybe 50, 60 years, life has changed because, back in the day, a person could have a job, for example, being very traditional. Okay, a man could have a job. That job was enough for him to buy a house, look after his wife, who didn't have to work, look after his children, and basically cover the income. That would be fine. Over time, that's not the case. Both parents would have to work. And even then, they may not be able to get on the property ladder. They may not be able to ever buy their own home because it's so expensive. And obviously, the cost of living is rising. And now parents are having multiple jobs and still not being able to get on the property ladder. So I think it's becoming very apparent that even people in high professions, if you're not finding a different way to generate your income outside of you having to be physically making it yourself, physically giving your time and energy to something to bring in a salary, it just becomes unfeasible. And even in the medical profession, we can see that doctors and nurses, they're very overstretched. They're pushed to breaking point. And so it gets to a point where the money they're making doesn't even quantify or even come close to putting the true value on the time and effort and sacrifice they're giving to do that job. For me, I think especially having my son at a young age, I had my own son when I was 18 as well. I was, from the beginning, I was juggling parenthood and work. So it wasn't like I had those period of years where it was just me. And so I could give all my life to work. I could never do that because I had already had him there. And so it was very important to me to have a good work home life balance. I wasn't going to kill myself for the job ever. That was non-negotiable because my priority is to be a good mom. My priority is to be there for my son and to provide for him. And so I had to always balance the money with the time that I give to him. So for me, it came down to multiple streams of income. If I was going to go for a 6-figure position in law, I knew I was not going to be at home, which means me failing as a parent. I wasn't going to do that. So I had to accept a lesser salary in law, which was still decent. But I knew that with everything going the way it's going, I was going to have to look for other things to subsidize that. I think also part of my upbringing helped me to realize from an early age that you can't depend on a job, because my granddad, he got ill, I think he was in his early 50s. He had a kidney infection and that took him out of work. Prior to that, he used to work 7 days a week, like weekends included. He never took days off. And it's only because he did that he was able to have paid off his mortgage by the time he got ill. But if he hadn't have been working so hard, and he didn't have any other kinds of investments or anything else in place, he would have been completely messed up by the illness, because he was never able to go back to work. And so I saw it in that generation. Then from my mum's perspective, seeing how her illness stopped her from going to work, and that obviously affected our family finances, because if she's not working, all of a sudden the income drops, all of a sudden we can't afford things, all of a sudden it's a struggle. And then when she gets back into work, it's that pressure to be at work that sometimes can even trigger the next illness for her. So I've seen it constantly, that you cannot depend on a job for your income. That can't be the main thing and the only thing that you have, because anything can happen. You can get ill, you can get sick, anything can happen to you at any given time. And if that's the only way you have to make money, you are going to be in a very sticky situation. So for me, it was imperative that even despite the good salary or not, I was going to find other ways that were going to be completely passive, so that God forbid the worst happens to me, there is still money coming in every single day. And that's the life I wanted, and that's what I did.
That's powerful. What you explain now is what people generally fear for why they are not striking out for themselves. They are looking for the security. There is nothing like security even in your workplaces. There are more than 1,000 reasons why they will sack you from your job and you will never work again. So why would you consider there is anything like security in your workplace? There is nothing like security, particularly in the time that we live in today. The only place that there is security is inside your mind. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So we must find a way to find that security. And I also like another thing that you say, which is very important for me and for the demography that we are serving, which is the African diaspora community. These multiple sources of income. People don't understand it. People don't understand why it is important for them. I want you to spend some time more about that. What does it mean? What should people do about that? Because it is absolutely important.
Got you. I think for a person to begin to understand why it's important, they need to understand how money works. All right. Money is nothing in itself. Okay, it's paper and coins, or digital, whatever you want to call it. But it's what it represents. Okay, money represents value for your time. Okay, value for your time. So whether you're giving an hour, whether you're giving a day, whether you're giving a week, what you're being paid represents a value, a price that's being put on your time. Okay, now you're already losing out because time is the one thing you cannot get back. If you're only meant to live for 50 years on this earth and someone pays you for the 50 years, they're gone. You're not getting them back. When you die, you die. That's it. It's over, right? You can't replace that time. So anything you're being paid for your hour is already not enough. Okay, so people need to start to understand that as a starting point. Then they need to understand that there's two different ways that people make money. Okay, one is being paid for their time. So that's if you're employed. That's if you're self-employed. When you give your time, that's how you make the money. If you give more time, you make more money. That's what people are used to. Okay, and then what people perceive as security, I would say, is just familiarity. It's just what they're used to. They just don't know any better. They don't know anything else than that. And so that's why they feel secure. It's not because it is secure. They just feel that way, right? The other way that people make money is through leverage. Okay, so for example, if you are a business owner, so say I own like a chain of supermarkets, I could be the CEO, the owner of the whole company, but I'm not going to be the one serving the customers. I'm not going to be the one, checking the security. I'm not going to be the one stacking the shelves. I'm going to employ other people and leverage their time. They're going to give their time and I'm just going to pay them. But I can afford to pay them because collectively they're going to be making me more than I am paying them. So that's profitable for me, and it means I don't have to give my time. So that's leverage in a business setting, right? The good thing about a business setting as well is it's usually system-based. So for example, if you go into like a big store and they have loads of different stores, like they have a chain, the setup will be the same in every store. So if I go into McDonald's, for example, I know what to encounter. I know what to expect in every single McDonald's because the system is the same. So once they've created the system once, it's just easy to duplicate it, copy it many times. So again, you're reducing your effort because you created the system once and it just can be copied and copied and copied. So there's more and more and more money for every chain you open, every branch you open. So that's leverage in a business sense, right? And then the other way people can leverage is through investment. So when you leverage an investment, for example, you buy a property, you're putting in a capital sum of money and you're basically sending the money out to work for you. So over time, the property value will increase. Then you're going to get a return on your investment. Or if you're renting a property, you've put money in once, but your tenants are now paying you every single month or every single week or whatever it is. So again, you've managed to leverage your capital. You're not giving your time to it. You're not giving your energy to it. It's just making you money on an ongoing basis. So when people learn to distinguish between the two, that's when they can really start to see some improvement, because now they're no longer giving their time. They're no longer giving their energy and their efforts. They're now able to make more unlimited amounts of money than they could ever do just being paid by the hour or the day or the week or the month, you see? And obviously those concepts are not mine. Those concepts are from Robert Kiyosaki. That's his cash flow quadrant. And he's, it's key that everyone understands that as the starting point. Then everything else makes sense.
I think this is where the trickish part actually come in that we don't understand how the money works. Thank you for pointing that out. Because if you look again into the demography I just made mention of, which is the African diaspora, where you are, where I am, where millions of people are, the reason why we are here is because of the money in most of the cases. You see, your grandparents came to the United Kingdom because they wanted to work, so that not because they wanted to work for the work, but they wanted to get a return of it so that they can have better life. And of course, there is no better way you can have better life than having the equivalent of the cost. And the cost is money, value. Now, this is why we are here. But what I understand, or what I'm beginning to understand, is that we don't understand how that process really works. So we just I think those who coin it, the rat race, really get it right. It is the rat race. They just said you are basically running even against yourself. You are just running, but you are not in control of the system. You don't know how it works. So within our demography, the African diaspora demography or community as a people, how do we get better understanding of how the money work? Because I think that is critical. Until we understand it, you cannot get hold of what you don't understand.
Yeah. Correct. That's 100% true. For me personally, the first key is admitting that you don't understand it. And that is a big hurdle for a lot of people to get over. They think they get it. They think they understand. And that's the problem. It stops them from being open to learning. Okay. So for example, you get some people, like obviously right now, we've got something called the cryptocurrency. Back in the day, there was no cryptocurrency. And you have a lot of people sitting adamantly that no, that thing's a scam. It doesn't work. It's not real. Not realizing that every day they're using it. And because they're so unwilling to accept that there's something out there that is new that they don't know, they never learn to understand it, so they can never benefit from it. When in order to benefit from something, you have to first understand it so you know how it works. And I think being open to doing that is the first step. On a practical level, on a more personal level, for me, I had to find someone who had the results that I wanted. That's the basic thing to do in anything. If you want to be good at football, find a football coach, someone who is good at football, and learn from them. And if you see that they have also helped other people to become better at football, then you know you're on the right track, because they can teach you things that you can then implement, and then you will become better at football. So the same thing applies to money. If you're not in a situation where you feel like you understand investments, or you feel like you understand property, or you feel like you understand business, find someone who's achieved what you want, get connected with them, listen to them, learn from them, see what they do, see how they think, and start to incorporate those practices for yourself. And then you will slowly get the results that they are getting for yourself. Yeah, that's basically the principle for me. Educate yourself. There's so much information out there right now. YouTube is a big resource. Google is a big resource. There are books, so much that you can do to learn. Another thing that I also take on for myself is, and this applies to any area, not just finance, any area. If you go on Amazon is great for best-selling books, right? Search for all the top best-selling books in the category of what you want to learn about. So if it's finance, search for finance. If it's networking, search for networking. If it's business, search for business. Find the top books and buy all of them. Like the top 5 books, let's just say. Buy all of the top 5 books. Because if you read all of those books, all of them will have key principles that are in there and are common throughout. But all of them will also have the perspectives of that particular writer and their own experiences. So you become a much better, well-rounded, more informed person in that area, just because you've taken the time to go and actually study, what are these successful people doing? What are they telling me that I should do? What is in here that I didn't already know that I can now learn? That is a great way to become more informed about any topic.
We're going to talk a lot about that reading, because from our understanding, a lot of people don't think there are value in books, and they are shooting themselves on the foot. Because imagine, for example, you now, because what we are doing is also about creative value, exchanging information, because what actually is important for us to be able to move from where we are to where we want to go is information. Because if I already know how to get to where I want to go, I should already be there by now. Exactly. But the fact that I am not there yet, meaning that I don't yet know how to get there. So information is the key here. Mm-hmm. And information is stored in very many ways. And one of the best ways that we have known, the key one, is actually books. And yet people don't read. And yet they complain that they're not able to get to where they want to go. But there is a key thing I want to ask you there. Have you spoken to some people within the community who maybe are not able to get there yet, and you have maybe suggested to them? And do you see them taking action? The other day I was talking to a writer, an African diaspora writer, and then I was saying something that I don't know if I over exaggerated with him. that we African, unfortunately, but by African, I also mean African diaspora, that we're not doing enough to save ourselves. We are like drowning in the water and we are calling help, SOS, help. But we're not doing enough to even save ourselves. A good example would just be that taking a book and read, for example. So the
Yeah.
question is, do you see people doing enough in the community to save themselves from the rat race?
I think some people, yes. And I think more so, especially after COVID, the pandemic, people are more aware and they are taking more action. But again, I think a lot of people are stuck in a zone of comfort whereby they say that they want more. They think they want more. You give them the instructions, you give them the information to get more, and then they've got 100 excuses why they can't do it. And that is part of the problem. It's that you have to be congruent in your actions compared to what you're actually saying. So for me, I've always learned that, so much as I can listen to what a person says they want, their actions will really tell me, because your actions come from your belief. You don't act conversely to what you truly believe. If I tell someone, don't run across the road because you're going to get hit by a car, if they believe me, they're not going to run across the road. If they don't believe me, they will run because they don't believe they're going to get hit. So people will always tell you what they really believe and what they really think by what they do. So I think that a lot more people need to be more self-aware and understand, okay, I said at the beginning of the year I wanted to do this, all year has come and I haven't done it. Why? What is really stopping me? Do I really want it enough? Another part of it is that sometimes people don't truly think that they can actually achieve what they say they want. So everybody, if you ask them, will say they want to be financially free. How many people actually think it's possible? And that's the difference. If you don't think it's possible, you won't do it. So for me, I've always found it important that a person do a number of things to increase their belief. So they actually believe they can do it, right? They need to control who they're around. So their associations. Some people around you are stopping you from getting to your best because they're constantly surrounding you with disbelief, whether it's through themselves or whether it's just through their general paradigms, their general ideals. They're telling you it can't work, it can't work, it can't work. And so you stop and think, okay, it can't work because everyone's telling me it can't work. And so you don't do anything, right? The other part is change your association so you are associating with people who have done it and who can do it and who want to do it. When you get yourself into that kind of setting, it encourages you and you start to believe and see that, yes, it can be done as well. Another part of it is your information that you're taking in. So again, who are you listening to? Are you listening to someone that's got the results or are you listening to someone that hasn't? And this, I think, in our culture, within the African and Caribbean culture is very, very strong because we are very heavy on respecting our elders. We're very heavy on listening to their advice. We're very heavy on not going against the grain. So for example, like you said, a lot of parents want their children to be either doctors, lawyers, or engineers. And you go ahead and you do it just because they said that you should do that. But a lot of the time when we look at their results, we don't even want their results. We're not even happy with their results, but we're trusting them to guide us to get something better that they couldn't achieve. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, they haven't got it. With all respect, they haven't got it, so they can't tell us how to get it. So you've got to also break those kind of, the kind of unwritten rules of our culture, and kind of find the ways that actually do work. Find the people that actually do know how to get you to where you want to go. And another thing is experiencing it for ourselves. A lot of times we feel, and I don't know whether this applies just because we are the diaspora and we're away from our own country where people are like us, right? When you go into the Western world, you suddenly feel like you have imposter syndrome, like you don't belong, like it's not for you, like you shouldn't be here. Like,
all right, you see, I think the brain is a very powerful instrument that we have, only that sometimes we don't use it. Because when we say that you can do certain things to help you get to where you want to go, and there are a lot of people who really want to get there, but they are not taking the action. What is responsible? There are a lot of people who really want to be free, but they are not doing what they're supposed to do to be free. And there is no way you can be free until you take the action. Action is the only thing that changes things.
Yeah.
You don't just think of it and it happens. If you take the action, it happens. But why are we not taking the action? Why do many people believe that it cannot be possible for them to do what other people are doing? So you were talking of imposter syndrome just now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you spend some time there a bit, please?
Yes. So I believe that a lot of people just think it's not for them. It's not for me. Why would I think they think that people that achieve financial freedom or financial independence or wealth, that those people must be special. Those people must be super smart. Those people must be really clever. Those people are different. And that's why they've got it. But then by doing that, it means that the average person then starts to think, well, I'm not special. I'm not different. I'm not really super smart. It's not for me. Right. Especially if they don't have anyone around them that is like them that has done it. And so that's why I think it's a lack of belief. You get this, especially in the Western world, when we come to European countries where, we're the minority per se, and the odds are not necessarily in our favor, it can be very easy to just think, oh, let me just be humble and just accept my portion and just accept that this is, I'm not meant to be that. I'm not meant to achieve greatness. I'm not meant to do those things. And it's the fact that if you think you can't, then you can't, because you won't try. If you think you can, you will, because nothing will be able to stop you. And it's just literally that difference in belief. If you believe in yourself and you believe that you can do something, you will not quit until you do it. You'll just be persistent. And also consistency. Like, a lot of people are good at starting things and not following through. Even that applies across the board, not just in the African diaspora. It applies to everybody. People start the gym every 1st of January every year. People say, oh, I'm going to go in the gym, I'm going to be doing this, and they buy everything and they get the new kit and the new trainers and they buy the gym membership. And then halfway through January, they're not even going anymore because they've lost the consistency, you see? And I think a lot of people that have made it to be successful, it's not because they're super smart. It's not because they had great connections to start with. It's just that they were consistent. They were fixed on the goal up, and they're just consistent. Day after day after day after day, taking small steps to get closer and closer and closer to where they want to be. And I think if people could just get into the habit of doing that, being a little bit braver, understanding they can do it, and just being consistent, they will achieve so much more.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think consistency is important, and also be patient with your effort. You are taking the effort, but know that it is going to take one step at a time. Mm-hmm. Because, if we just observe nature, observe even our life, just look at how it is structured, I think many things we will learn along the way. Because just try to take 2 steps at a time. The only consequence is that you are going to fall. But if you take one at a time, you're going to run a mile and be very fast also. You will go far by 1 step at a time. But exactly. If you don't take any step, you will not get to anywhere.
Yeah.
I think we just need to learn by even merely observing people. Like you said before, you see somebody who have got it to a point. Now, for the fact that there is somebody who have got it to a point, already explained that it is possible to be done. Now, the next question is, what do they do to get to where they are today? Usually, they will say that success leaves clues, leaves records. So, many of us can do it.
Okay, so Forex was something I got into about 3 years ago, and I knew nothing about it before I started, which again shows it's possible that you can learn about it. Okay? And basically, in a nutshell, it's short for foreign exchange. Okay, so for example, in the UK, we use pounds, where I'm sure you use euros. Okay, those are 2 different currencies. If I want to, go on holiday and go to Italy, I'm going to have to exchange my pounds for the euros so that I can spend money there. When I do that, I'm basically exchanging. I'm at a certain rate. There's going to be a certain amount of euros I can get for the pound. And again, if I come back, there's going to be a certain amount of pounds that I can change my euros for. Those are called exchange rates. So we're used to doing this when we go on holiday. We're used to using exchange rates, right? Or if we're sending money to loved ones abroad, we're used to exchange rates. What we don't realize is that you can actually trade the movements in the price. So as exchange rates go higher and as exchange rates go lower, you can actually trade and make money off of the movement. So whether it's going up or whether it's going down, you can actually make a profit on it. Now, this is something that's been going on for years. Okay, the big banks have been doing this. This is what they do. This is basically how they make their money. They make their money from putting our money into the foreign exchange market. And as different currencies rise and fall, they're trading it and making a profit for themselves, right? Because that's how the banks actually make most of their money. What is happening now with advances in technology is that the average person is able to do this for themselves. So it's not just big institutions that can do it now. You can find a broker online and you can actually make money for yourself in the foreign exchange market simply by buying and selling different currencies. Now, I would advise a person, if they want to learn to do this, definitely get the guidance of someone who has already done it. Do not try to do it for yourself, especially not with real money, because that is where the risk lies. More so in what you don't know than what you do know, right? Now, in terms of actually trading doesn't have to be risky. Okay, you're always in control of how much of your actual capital you expose to the market at any one time. And as a guide, I never expose more than maybe say 2 to 5% of what I've actually got in my trading account to the markets. Okay, so that means that if I have £100, the most I should be able to lose out of any kind of one trading scenario would be £2 to £5, which is not very much. If you're risking a lot more, then obviously you risk losing the whole 100, because that's what that's what you've chosen to do. But generally speaking, it doesn't have to be risky. And I think that's why a lot of people have the fear. They think that, oh, you're going to lose money. Oh, it's going to be terrible. You're not going to make any money. And it's just about finding the strategy, having someone that can guide you, or having a system that can guide you. And again, finding the results from something that is already working, and then applying what they're doing to your own account. And yeah, it's definitely been a really good earner for me. That's basically what allowed me to start that transition out of just working a 9 to 5. So yeah, a very, very strong advocate of people learning about trading, learning how money works, and then finding a way to capitalize on it, or to learn about it or get into it, so they can actually start making some income, because it's completely passive as well. It doesn't have to be something that you have to learn and study. It can just be something that is just working for you, and you just invest in it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, we're going to use it as a mirror to be able to see ourselves now. I mean, okay, the people that are listening to you, when you knew that you wanted to do this, what did you do to be able to do it well so that you can get result? I want you to share some of your strategy with us.
Okay. So the first time this was brought to me, it was actually my cousin. She introduced it to me. She said, oh, Nick, there's a way you can make some extra money. I think you might be good at this. And so that's when I took a look at it. Now, at that time, I was actually working 2 jobs. So I was a full-time lawyer, and I was also doing bus driving on the side. So weekends, I was driving buses, and it was just so much. But that was the only way I knew at the time of how to make more money. So see, going back to how to make money, I was just giving more time to make more money. I didn't realize that there was these other things you could do. So that was the first time I was exposed to it. And what I did then was I connected with someone who is now a very good friend and mentor of mine. And his background was in finance. So again, it came back to finding someone with the knowledge that you don't have, so they can help you. So he's worked for the likes of Goldman Sachs, he worked for the likes of JP Morgan, Fidelity, like he's worked for these really big banks. So he already knew about that finance world. But even he, at that position, earning a very good wage, found himself in that same situation where he had the money, but he didn't have the time. And so he got into the foreign exchange markets for himself, and he learned how to trade for himself so that he could actually step away from those jobs, and he was completely financially free. So this was 3 years ago. At the time I met him, he hadn't worked since 2018. Like, he hadn't worked a job for anyone else. So that thoroughly impressed me, because again, that was me finding someone who had the results I wanted, and just literally saying, okay, what did you do? Let me learn from you. And so I just basically followed every instruction he gave me. Everything he told me to do, I did. Everything he told me to study, I studied. Everything he told me to watch, I watched. And that's how I got to this position for myself. So that's the best way I know to tell anyone, find someone who's got the results that you want, who's done it, and go with that. Out there now, there are so many companies that you can partner with that also teach this education. So at that time, the one that he told me to use was one I was with for 2 years. Now the company I'm with has even kind of developed on what is available in that market. And this company now provides automated services. So a person doesn't even need to learn for themselves the way I had to learn. They can actually just take advantage of software that is already out there and enable them to make profit that way. So sometimes it's just being exposed to what's out there, and you learn, you see what's new and what's working. So it's much easier for someone that wants to do it now.
Thank you for that. All right. Now, I want to go back to what you said before, I think towards the beginning of this episode, which is multiple sources of income. Because I think it's very important for us as a community, as a people, because I want to repeat again. Many of us are in the diaspora because we want to be able to live better life. And the way to be able to live better life is that you're going to pay for it. In this world, nothing is free. But because we don't know how it functions, we are just there investing our time and get a little return in it. We don't get rich. We just get enough to be able to remain in the system. That is what we get here. Okay, there are some few individuals who are able to go beyond that. Okay, so we need the knowledge. We need to know how to be able to get out of the rat race and live better lives, so that we can also help people where we are coming from. It is legitimate to be able to do this. So what would you recommend as a beginner in the diaspora community, a person who wants to have multiple sources of income?
First of all, they should decide how much they actually have to play with. So, for example, some people, they're at an income level where they don't have anything surplus for the month. Everything they have goes on bills. So it's going to be very hard for that person to create investment from no capital. Okay, and some people that's the problem. They're so limited with what they have that they're scared to let it go, because they feel like if I let it go and I lose it, that's going to be absolutely terrible for me. Those people, the first thing they need to do is find a way to generate more money first. So whether that means taking on a second job, whether that means using a skill that you have and learning how to monetize it. Okay, so there's so many things you could do. You could have a YouTube channel, you could do online sales, you could do affiliate sales, which is something that I also use to get started as well, which doesn't require much from you to start, but you can actually make a lot of money doing that. That money you can then go to invest. You see what I mean? So the first thing is figuring out, where are you? Where is your starting point? If you don't have any money, you need to find a way to make some so you can invest. If you already have money to invest, decide for yourself how much of that is actually you're happy to use. And the mindset of investment is very, very different to the mindset of the job. And people have to realize that. When you go to work, you work a day, you're expected to be paid for the day. You're angry if you don't get paid for the day because that was the deal. In investment, just because you put money into something doesn't mean it 100% has to do what it was meant to do on the tin. That's not how it works. So any money that I invest or that someone else invests, I always advise. So the mindset of investment is very important. So what I would advise people if they're going to invest, and again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is just what I have done and what I have learned. And that is, you have to approach investment as if whatever you're putting in could completely disappear. And you have to be okay with that. Okay, the chances are that's not going to happen. But on the route to creating wealth, there will be things that you try that don't work. There will be things that you try that work amazingly well and make you a lot of money. There will be things that you try that you kind of break even on. But you have to be willing to experience all of that in order to get to where you ultimately want to go. And I think that's the problem. People do not want to lose. They don't want to risk. They don't want to. And so they're limiting what they can achieve because they're scared of the worst case scenario. And they have to be open to it. And that's why it's important to have multiple streams of income, because once you start and you create an income stream in one place that's bringing in some extra, that can now be the money that you use to put into the next thing. And when that starts to work, you now create a chain of different income streams that you can leverage one against the other. So you're no longer putting your hand into your own pocket all the time to finance these different vehicles and ventures. You've actually got one that makes money that you can use for another, that makes money that you can use for the third. And that's how you start. So you don't try and invest in like 5 things all at one time. Start with one first. When that one is working for you, then you take the profits from that and you start a second. So that's how it kind of goes. You have to build them up. I mean, anyone that's kind of interested in doing this, you know, I'm happy to reach out and have a conversation with people one-on-one to figure out what kind of vehicles or what kind of ventures they can do that are right for them. This is something I've been doing for myself for 3 years. And like I said, I've also been able to mentor and help other people to do the same thing. So the platform that I'm currently partnered with, one that is really, really good, very credible ownership, very kind of high fund security, even though it's in the world of investment. This is one that's become very popular that people can use. And again, it helps people to tap into the foreign exchange market, the crypto market, the stock market, and that's on an active basis or on a passive basis. So if a person's very busy, they still can do it because there's completely passive elements to it that can also make you a return. But I think people just have to first be willing to see what's out there, willing to put their head above the parapet, willing to take the risk, because that's how you're going to get to where you want to go. And for me, I always think of it like this, you know, however long you plan to be on this earth, that time is going to pass anyway. It's going to pass anyway. There is going to be a day when you die anyway. And when you die, you can't take any of it with you. You can't take any of the money with you, none of the property. You can't take any of it with you. So the question is, how do you want to spend the rest of the time you have remaining here? Do you want to spend it always wishing that you've done that thing? Or do you want to spend it trying and getting closer and closer and closer with every attempt? That's the way that I look at it.
And that is powerful. Thank you so much for that. I wish maybe we have, okay, I know there are some places of learning or places that where we can meet and to share idea, because I say again, idea and information are very powerful. They are actually the instrument we need to be able to change the world and to change ourselves, starting by ourselves, no? Maybe, like you said, sometimes we need to change our association in who are you associated with, who is giving you information. From my understanding, within the diaspora community, there is a lot of talking about spirit and things like that, going to church and singing and dancing all the time. Well, I'm not really saying this is a bad thing, but what if we could actually be organizing some of these things within the area of helping ourselves, getting new knowledge, learning about investment, learning about business, learning about, because I repeat again, many of us are here because we want to be able to have better life. We cannot get this better life by just singing and dancing. We can only get better life by getting knowledge, learning about other people who are able to achieve what we want to achieve. So if that is the case, what if maybe we could organize schools and teaching institutions? We still organize it the same way. We can still drink if we want to drink, but at the end of the day, we can learn things to help us move away from the rat race. I don't know if that is over, if I'm over pessimistic, or maybe I'm over stressing the issue by saying that.
Do you know what? I don't think you are. And it's actually funny because I was having a very similar conversation earlier on. And I see a lot of this in our community. We are a very spiritual people. We are a very God-fearing people in the most part. And sometimes I feel like this can be a hindrance, because sometimes I feel like we're too willing to just accept our current situation and rely on God to do the work. You know, we can sing, we can dance, we can pray, we can, we can have a problem and we can pray and pray and pray and pray and pray about the problem. But when the solution, the practical solution that we can actually do to change the situation is given to us, we're still praying. We're busy praying. We're like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm praying right now about my problem. But the answer to the problem has just come and you can do something about it. So it's like God will do his part by giving you the opportunities. He will do his part by providing you with the guidance. He will bring the right people to you so that you can start to have the right conversations, so that you can learn the right information, so you can take the right actions. It's not just going to click fingers and the problem's gone. You have to actually do something yourself. And so I do think in our community, there is a lot of reliance on either just accepting that this is the situation, I should just be grateful, I should just be happy. Yes, always be grateful, always be happy, always, lead with a spirit of gratitude for what we do have, but also have gratitude for the opportunities and the abilities to do more, because we would not have been given as humans such superior intellect, such superior ability to create and to make and to find and to make new things if we were not meant to use it. And the fact that we have that, I think, is often overlooked. We often appear that we are helpless or that we can't change the situation, when actually we're just not willing to do what is required to change the situation. And that's the difference. You've got to be willing to actually do the work to get the results. And then by all means, pray and give thanks for what has now happened in your life. But it didn't happen by itself. You've got to do some,
Sorry, I was laughing because sometimes it's a laughing matter in some case. No, we just need to laugh over it too, because you see, if you look at nature, the way nature really is, let's say the way it was actually naturally designed. If we live like that, we will be living like lion and antelope in the forest. That is the natural world. For the fact that we live in metropolitan cities, we fly in the air, I don't think this one was designed by God. This is done by human being. That is people
God
that
gives
have
us the
idea.
ability.
If we want to live those kind of life where we can cross a bridge, because water is flowing, there is a piece of land here, there's another piece of land there. If nature wanted it to be gum together, it will gum in together. But for the fact that it is separated, meaning that naturally you are supposed to be here, other thing or other people are supposed to be on the other part. But the fact that we are not comfortable with that, we put a bridge. That is our doing. That has to start from our head, our thinking, that we are better living like that. But the fact that you can take a flight and move from one country to another, it is our doing. So we just cannot live by just praying and say, oh, thank God, oh, thank God. Come on. What are you going to do with your head?
Exactly.
So I believe, yeah, please go.
No, I was going to say that, there's a saying that nothing comes about unless it was first created in the mind, right? So everything that we have around us, the cars, the clothes, the shoes, the everything, every single thing, every physical man-made object that is around us had to first come from here. Everything. The iPhone that we spend so much time on, that didn't just come from nowhere. Someone first thought, I'm going to make a device that can do so many different things, and I'm going to call it an iPhone. And first they had an idea, and then maybe they wrote it down as an idea. Then they drew a picture, and they tried to show someone else, look, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to make. And maybe some of the technology, even when they had the idea, didn't even exist. They had to wait and say, okay, let me at least make something that can help me bring this into an actual physical object. Now iPhone is everywhere, right? But it first had to come from in your mind. And so the idea, the concept that I want to impress upon people is that if you have an idea that your life can be better, if you have an idea that you can live a different kind of lifestyle, you can have more income, you can, provide better for your family, you can provide better for yourself, you can, create legacies, you can help organizations, you can help charities. If you have the idea, that means it can be done. Because if it couldn't, you wouldn't have the idea, and everything seems impossible until it's done. When the Wright brothers created the aeroplane, everyone thought they were crazy. What are you doing? We're humans. We don't go up in the air. What are you doing? And now we love to jet on flights, Dubai and all these nice countries we're traveling to, and we don't even give it a second thought. But the first person to do it, everyone looked at them like they were crazy, right? And so we have to understand, sometimes in our family, we're the first person to do it. In our friendship circles, we're the first person to do it. In our communities, we're the first person to do it. And don't be afraid to be the first person to do it, because if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. So if you want it to be done so that others can follow, others can learn, you have to be brave enough and bold enough to be the first person to make it happen. And it's all going to be new. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have L's. You're going to take lessons. But that is part of the learning process, because you learn more from getting it wrong than you do from getting it right. And that's how you get better. That's how everybody gets better. So I would just say to people, be bold, be brave. Don't just rely on your prayers and your fasting to get things done. You have to put implementation into it from your own self, actually take the steps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, we should know that we are not here forever. We're only here for a small space of, it's just a short space of time. And in this time, what do we want to do? I think we need to realize that we are here to make an impression. We are here to say that we have been here. Because if you didn't do anything other than just the ordinary, just waking up and just responding to rules, you are just a number.
Yeah.
For example, Steve Jobs is not just a number. But the day Steve Jobs was born, there were many other people that were born that day. But who remembers them? Nobody knows. We don't even know their names. The day he died, many people also died that day. So the question is, we must ask ourselves, why am I here? Of course, I'm not saying everybody must be like Steve Jobs, but in your little cycle, in your little angle, what are you going to do with this opportunity of life that you have? I think that is important. And that leads me to the fact that you are a mentor. You do mentorship, correct?
Yes, correct. I do. Yes.
I think this is important because in life, all of us, I don't see the same things. But we need the eyes of other people to be able to see beyond what we can see. That is why we also need mentors. We need mentorship and training. Help us. What do you really do in those areas?
So again, it's very simple when you break it down. I just help people to do what I have already done. That's literally it. So when I started, I was making money from my smartphone. I was making money from my laptop. I was finding ways to better look after the money that I do have. And so that's a big part of what I do. But I actually think the biggest part of what I do really is helping people to think differently. Because again, people don't do what they don't believe. So I can tell someone do ABC, but they're not going to do ABC if they don't believe. Do you see what I mean? So a person first has to change their way of thinking, because again, like you said, the reason someone isn't where they want to be is because they don't have the information. And sometimes the information is even having the right perspective in a certain situation. You know, so two people can have the same thing. They can both enter into a business venture and the business doesn't work, right? One person, they take the approach of, oh, I've lost my money. I'm never going to do that again. That was such a bad decision. I hate the person that told me about it. You know, I'm just going to work hard and just do that because at least that way I don't lose my money. Okay, they can have that perspective, but they're never going to create wealth from doing the job. So they've just resigned themselves to giving up on what they actually want, right? Another person can have the same thing. They lose their money in this business venture. And instead of getting angry and upset, they say, okay, what am I going to learn from this? These are things that actually, these were kind of red flags. Next time, I'm not going to be, you know, I'm going to be more aware of those things. Also, what was working well in this business? What was actually really good about this? Okay, I'm looking for something that still has those traits, right? And so they take the opportunity and they move forward and they try again. And next time it's a big success because they learned from what had happened previously. They didn't waste their time being upset and angry. Being upset and angry doesn't get you your money. Being upset and angry doesn't get you closer to where you want. So what are you going to productively do? What approach are you going to take? What perspective are you going to have that allows you to still move forward? And that is the biggest part, the biggest distinguishing factor between people that actually make it to what they want and people that don't and just give up and quit and they're angry and they're resentful. It's all your perspective. It's how you think about things, because how you think and feel about things is going to ultimately influence the actions that you are or are not willing to take. So that's the biggest part of what I do. I help people to have the correct approach on how to deal with what they're going through, give them the correct information so they can continue to make more money and, you know, point them in the right direction and just help them through that process. So like I said, I'm still involved in the Forex industry and crypto. So the platform that I'm using with the people that I'm working with is a specific platform. And with that, they're able to make a passive income if they don't actually want to do any work. They're able to learn more about the foreign exchange markets, learn more about cryptocurrency. They're able to use tools that help them to know when to buy certain cryptocurrency so they actually make a profit on the long term. So there's so many different things. I also help people to build their networks, you know, so basically increase the wealth of people that are around them so they can start to get better information. They can start to be exposed to better opportunities, things in property, things in business, things that they wouldn't ordinarily get from the people that they're ordinarily around. So by coming into the community that I'm part of, you actually get exposed to all of that. And that then ultimately increases your opportunity to make more money. And it's been very successful. It's been really, really good. You know, I myself, like I said, I was able to quit my job earlier this year. I also hit that 6-figure income mark, which is something I've been, you know, looking and working towards for a long time. And to be able to do that and not have to go to work, it's like incredible. Just from making a change and putting some passive investments in place, it means that I can go to sleep and money will be made. If I'm sick, money will be made. If I just don't want to work, money will be made. You know, it's a really, really satisfying feeling. And I want everybody to experience that if that's what they want. That's why I help and that's why I do what I do, because it's so fulfilling, so fulfilling.
Thank you so much for that. That is the most important part of the entire conversation, the fulfillment. Because of what sense it is, if you are the richest person in the world and you are not happy, that would not be a good thing. But if you do what you love to do and you make money from it, you are happy with it, that is the best thing there is. Thank you for that part. Now, before I ask you the last thing, which is your recommendation, how can people connect with you? Those who might want to work with you, they listen to your story, they like it, they want to connect with you. Tell them how to reach you.
Okay, so I have an Instagram page at Nicola Johannan. People can connect with me on there. I also have my LinkedIn as well. So my LinkedIn page is Nicola Samuda, Samuda. People can also reach out to me and connect with me on there. I think for an overview of what I do, I always encourage people to go to my Instagram page, because my Instagram page shows where I started. It shows the whole journey. There's, reels on there, educational videos on there. If people check out my highlights, they can also have a look at my story, which literally shows the whole transition of what I've been through. And they can also see on there a highlight reel that says join my team. So that over there, they can find out the most current things that I'm working on and directly connect with me. And we can have a video call and I can see how I can help them. So that would be the best way for people to get in contact with me, I would say.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Now, what would be your final thought here? A kind of a recommendation? Maybe that is a message you want to leave the people with to conclude the conversation. Please go ahead and do that.
So my final thoughts and my final message to people will be, do not quit. If there's something that you said you wanted, whether it be the beginning of 2022, you said it, whether it be 10 years ago, you said it, and you've been working on it and you're not sure how to get it, and you're not sure if you can get it, the answer is just do not quit. Keep going, keep learning, keep trying, keep reaching out, persevere, and you will ultimately get what you want. The only difference between people who get there and people who don't is the people who get there just didn't quit. That's the most sensible thing you can do. Don't quit. Keep going.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. That'll be really, really interesting and educating. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.